Welcome to the West Indian Women Network. I am Priscilla Ramcharan, the founder here in the United States, and we have extended our network to talk to our West Indian men, find out what they're doing, what they're up to, how we can support them, and how we could all connect. So, my next guest is jack of all trades, basically, right? We have authorhood, we have YouTuber, and so much more that he's going to tell us all about. So please introduce yourself and tell us about your work.
Thank you very much for having me. Well, my name is Lyndon Baptiste. I am from Trinidad and Tobago. I'm the last of four children, and I grew up without a television and radio in my house. So I had the privilege to spend a lot of time reading the encyclopedias over and over. And I always had a special interest in writing. My dad, I knew he had a background in journalism, but I didn't know him as a journalist. And I would spend time on his typewriter, which we still have, writing stories. I read a lot of Louis L'Amour work. And then sometime in 2006, I had an experience with healthcare in Trinidad and Tobago. And when I came out of hospital, I spent about 2 weeks writing the book.
Oh.
And I didn't have the guts to publish it though, because it was my first manuscript and it was a very sensitive issue, something that affects your manhood deeply. So, but it gave me the confidence to say that, hey, I could write a book. And I spent the next 2 years writing and editing a book called 90 Days of Violence. Then I helped my
Mm.
uncle publish a book and I helped other folks, in the Caribbean accomplish their dream because I am a web programmer by profession. That's
Oh,
my full-time job.
okay.
Funny enough, after I had finished my thesis, I did a website called potbake.com. And I spent a lot of it was geared towards Caribbean recipes and that type of work. But when I branched off into writing the book and promoting and my skills that I have as a programmer, I changed potbake.com into Potbake Productions, which is where I self-published my books. I eventually stumbled into the world of creating videos, and it was along the lines of promoting my books as well.
Mhm.
And so that picked up, and now I do content creation as well. So I would post occasionally on YouTube. I've kind of backed off of the writing, but I try to use the YouTube channel and podcasting and work like what you doing here to connect with readers, particularly Trinis based throughout the Caribbean.
Congratulations. I love your story. And sometimes it takes that like down moment to then really inspire you to capture your story in writing. And for me, it's like it has to flow. You cannot force the writing to happen, right? So that was your first book, 90 Days?
That was the first book that I published.
Oh,
Eventually,
congratulations.
eventually, I got the courage to publish a book called "Oh My Testicles," which is the first manuscript that I actually completed.
Congratulations. I mean, you don't have to give us the whole backstory, but I think this is very important um, for anyone else in your situation who finds themselves, wanting to share their experience to help others. So what finally gave you that kick to go ahead and put it out there to the world?
The first time my dad wrote, he read that manuscript. He said, "This is a fantastic story, and you should
Oh,
publish it." What happened is I got something called a testicular torsion. If I could just quickly give you some details on it, your testicles, they have these, I think it's called the spermatic cord, and that is pictured like a hose, and it could
okay.
literally kink. And if it kinks, your blood supply doesn't go to your testicles, and you could lose it. You could lose it in the space of 8 minutes if it's really bad. So this happens to me, and I am hopping. First, I go to a Mount Hope hospital, then I end up in a private healthcare facility, then Port of Spain General. You probably know stories of in terms of like what healthcare could be like. We hear great stories, we hear horror stories. My
Right.
story is one where I was just hopping over the place, and given the sensitivity of the problem, I
Right.
encountering different doctors. So even though it's a painful story, there's a lot of comedy when you're just telling the story and you're disconnected from the scenario. So
Right.
I think, and unfortunately for me, I published that book because it's a title that tends to kind of grab people's attention, and they may come over and chat with me about, in terms of, hey, I've had people who walk past the table and they would, when I'm promoting, and they'd say, I don't even read, but I'm going to buy this book.
When I saw the title, and your website is phenomenal, by the way. When I saw the title, that I think that's what it was. I had to figure out, like, what is this man writing about? But I'm happy that you're taking it lightly now. I'm sure the experience itself was not something that you would want anybody to go through, but I'm happy that you're sharing it with the world. So, what advice would you give to others who happen to be in your same circumstance?
What, when it comes to the books, writing, or the testicles?
Both. Let's start with let's start with the health aspect, like your journey going to all these different hopping around places. What would have helped you to resolve this issue a little bit quicker?
So it could result in you having to have surgery.
Mm,
Uh, I don't want to get into too much of details that might spoil the book for the potential reader,
true.
but it is something to take quite seriously. We may be, as men, we may be a little bit sensitive at times in terms of talking about, well, that's health in general. There
Right.
are things that my wife, I would see as minor, and then my wife would say to me, you should look into this. And I think,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it is a human thing, or if it's a man thing or a woman thing, but I'm learning more and more as I get older that, seek your interest when it comes to health. I have a tendency, maybe as a man, to just kind of sit on some issues, and definitely when it concerns procreation.
You are too funny. But I think it's a human thing, because I myself sometimes the little pain or so, and I'll say, "Oh, let that go, it'll get better." And then like a week later, I'm like, "Wait, maybe I should go get something checked out." So I think it's a human thing for
Yes,
sure.
yes.
Wonderful. Well, what inspires you and motivates you to continue recording, content creating, web programming? What do you wake up every morning and say?
Uh, I think, sometimes I don't think I've kind of figured out that question. I know I stumbled into the world of YouTube, as I mentioned, from the point of view of promoting my books.
Hmm.
It is, I don't know that I've ever been able to kind of explain my creativity and what inspires me, but I could tell you recently my experience has been, what should inspire me to stop. And there are times, sorry, I'm a little bit distracted because my daughter is in the background here. She's home with me today.
That's
Um,
okay. I have two.
she was staying, yeah. She's being nice and quiet in the background.
Hi.
But in terms of, I don't know, I think the storytelling aspect is what I really want to focus my work on. And when I look at video creation, and not just in um not just in Trinidad, the Caribbean, but worldwide. I am trying to tell through my work, not just my books, but this kind of big, elaborate story that kind of encapsulates a part of Trinidad and Trinidadian life that the older heads, suspect that we may have lost. That this idea of,
Right.
bring back the old time days, right? And I'm trying to look. I try to celebrate people through the work that I do, particularly the folks that do grassroots type of work.
Hmm.
That could be, they're just so, society views them as so extraordinarily ordinary that you could just walk past them and not look twice. I've had the good fortune of working with my own family, with men like Mr. Bat and Farmer Harry. You could find their work on YouTube. These are guys who are farmers and live off grid in
Hmm.
Trinidad and Tobago. And they have, particularly during that 2020 period with COVID, when the world was in lockdown, they were
Right.
able to showcase their life in terms of, like, there's men who live natural, off grid, no electricity, no water, and they've accomplished a lot in the work. And I am happy that I could be the medium, that I could have that interest in people, and then wake up every morning and say to myself, hey, this could inspire me to keep going because I want to tell their stories.
Oh, yes. Absolutely. I love it. You know, as authors, that's what we do. We tell stories, we bring light to those that have been shadowed and overshadowed. And I love that absolutely that you are recognizing people who are living what we call, not so normal nowadays, living off the grid. To be honest, that's what I've been telling hubby. Like, I need to get off the grid too. So that's great. So what do you have? What are you working on now? What's coming up next for you?
So my work now is I've kind of backed off of the writing.
Hmm.
It is something that isn't financially, it isn't feasible for me to do. I have
Understood.
I'm sitting at a desk where because I printed hard copies of my books, and I'm sitting at a desk where probably beneath at my feet I have at least 200 books that I've printed even a long time ago. So my focus is on telling the stories in a way that it is cost effective for me. That is,
Hmm.
I use my phones to tell to capture these stories. I use free video editing software, free music. So I want to just be able to continue to tell these stories, and if it has benefits along the lines of other folks who tell their stories as well. Recently, I started a podcast called Caribbean Content Creators, where
Yes, I saw that.
I'm talking to people about their content creation journey, because opportunities like this, even what you're doing, Priscilla, is great because people out there, they're looking for formats where they could go out, talk about their work, connect with people. And it is a pleasure to be able to do this, even as a writer, even as another content creator. So I just want to continue to be able to tell those stories, as well as just keep a sharp eye out for the ordinary,
Right.
and and tell it in a way that other people, it could connect with other folks.
Absolutely. And I enjoy having you here and building the network and sharing your work. So I guess we're aligned in that way. Are you saying you have a copy of your book right there?
Yeah, hold 1 second. Uh,
Okay.
so this is the first book that I actually published, which is 90 Days of Violence.
Wow.
This is uh, a book of short stories about Trini men, called Boydie's Short Stories About Trini Men.
Hmm.
And
Congratulations. I want to read all.
yeah.
These are on
Whenever
Amazon?
they're available on Amazon, they're
Okay.
available on the Kindle. They're not available in the bookstores like in Trinidad. A lot of times through my YouTube channel, through the work that I do, if I'm able to connect with people one on one,
Hmm.
I sell them the books that way. I've been very lucky as a writer in terms of consignment with bookstores and collecting payments. That has been my experience, and this is the book, Oh My
Okay.
Test, that I completed first, but I published later on.
Yeah, that's wonderful. You'll send me all of your links so I could put in the description box below.
Okay,
And
fantastic. Yes.
we are planning to have some kind of virtual event for authors. So you're most welcome to come and share about your books, and hopefully we can generate some sales for you. But at the end of the day, you seem perfectly content with what you're doing.
Yes, I am. And what you could probably do afterwards, you could probably privately send me your mailing address, and I'll send one or two of the books to you.
No, no, no. I have to support you. But I appreciate that. Maybe when I'm on the island, hopefully by the end of the year,
Okay, great,
could
great.
definitely
I'll give
do
you a
that.
copy of my testicles.
Okay. Oh gosh, well, it's so good that you recovered from your medical situation, and you're here to laugh a little bit about it and share about it and speak openly, because a lot of times it is difficult to share when something so personal has happened, and your journey and all of that. So I really think more people should feel freer to share their experiences, whether it's a hardship or something heavy. No pun intended.
Definitely. Uh,
Awesome. So, do you have any last messages for our viewers?
just find ways to tell your stories. I think, yes. Yes, I have a message for viewers,
Okay.
particularly those who may be pursuing some passion in their life, whether it's writing, art, a YouTube channel. It takes a lot of hard work, even the work that you do in Priscilla. A lot of times you would feel that you are not connecting with people based on the metrics that may be important, for example, views. And it is a long road towards getting results. I have I have worked, since 2006, 2008, trying different things, hitting on things that work, giving up other things that don't work. So you always keep an eye open for experimentation, keep an eye open for what works and repeating it. I think as a creative person, you end up in scenarios where you realize, this is working, but it's not what I like to do. And you need to kind of be able to separate, well, I am doing this for maybe a living, and I am
Mm-hmm.
doing this for creativity's sake. So you need, there are some things that you just need to do to stay afloat from a financial point of view. That is absolutely fine. Keep doing it. Experiment, stick with what works, give up what may be kind of working contrary to your reputation as a writer, and just stick with it, boy, because one day, years from now, I think recently I had an experience where, maybe just about 2 weeks ago, where I woke up and you realize that, wow, I could see how it's all coming together.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes sometimes years for that to happen. So I want to encourage you to keep doing what you're doing in your capacity as well, and to
Thank
to stay
you.
motivated even when you may not be smiling like you're smiling right now.
I'm always smiling.
But there are moments, I don't know if it happens to you, but as a creative person, or maybe just life, you're doing something, and because you're holding on to a metric that the world has deemed as important, you feel
Mm-hmm.
a little bit gloomy.
Yes.
But just stick with it, because one day, God willing, it will make sense to you.
Absolutely. And like you said about, Farmer Harry and all that, you get back to basics. Always, that you could go back to the basics. I truly agree. There are those moments, but for me, I've been easier to bounce back than I used to be. And you're so right, planting those seeds, when I started writing, when I started the channel, it was just for fun. But then, things started coming full circle. My network started expanding, ideas started flowing. And I truly agree with you 100%. Keep going in that path that keeps lighting up for you, and it will definitely, you'll see the rewards one day.
Yes, and I really appreciate you
Awesome.
having me.
For sure. You're going to come back, right? We'll talk about
Uh,
a couple of other things.
okay, great. That's fantastic. I look forward to it.
Sounds good. Well, so nice to talk to you. Be safe. Take care of all your parts.
Will do.
Say bye.
Okay, bye bye. Take care.
Bye bye.